Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we've got something uh, really quite fascinating.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
It's a transcript from a British literature quiz show. Someone sent it over.
A quiz show. Okay, interesting angle.
Right. So our mission today, for you, the listener, is to really plunge into these questions and answers.
And pull out the key stuff.
Exactly. Extract the core knowledge about the, significant literary figures and how they connect.
So sort of a shortcut through the trivia to the actual substance.
Think of it just like that. Your shortcut to grasping key bits of British literary history, the relationships between writers.
I like it because, a quiz show format, it seems light, but you're right. It can actually highlight what was seen as important.
It really can. It surprisingly illuminates these figures and their works.
Yeah, what's fascinating here, I think, for you is how the repetition, the focus within the questions, it acts like a spotlight, doesn't it?
Totally. Shows who mattered, or at least who mattered enough for a quiz.
Precisely. By seeing which names, which works keep topping up, you get a real sense of the literary landscape of that time.
And their relative importance.
Their relative importance, exactly.
Okay, let's unpack this then. And we really have to start with William Hazlitt. He just dominates a huge chunk of this quiz.
Oh, absolutely. Questions 45 right through to 57. It's like the Hazlitt section.
It felt like a Hazlitt marathon. We saw questions on his radical outlook, his famous essay on familiar style, even the fact that R.L. Stevenson apparently copied his style.
Yeah, aped was the word they used, wasn't it?
It was. Plus, his writing covered this incredible range.
Yeah.
Coffeehouse politicians.
Right.
Milton, Shakespeare, even the art critic Reynolds.
It's a broad scope. Shows he wasn't just stuck in one lane.
Not at all. And then specific works. The Round Table, characters of Shakespeare's plays.
And his opinions on seeing plays acted out, like Hamlet.
Right. And his lectures on the English poets, on the dramatic literature at the age of Elizabeth. Oh, and the Plain Speaker.
It's an astonishing breadth, really.
It is. So what does this tell you? For the listener, what's the significance of him appearing so much?
Well, for you to understand the significance, this sheer volume of questions, it just points to Hazlitt's central role. He was right in the thick of it.
In a literary conversation, you mean?
Exactly. In the discourse. He wasn't just, writing in isolation. He was actively shaping how people thought about literature, about the world,
Okay.
and that range of topics. It underscores something key about that period, the Romantic and early Victorian era.
Which is?
The rise of the sort of public intellectual, someone engaging with culture, politics, everything. Through writing, people could actually read and understand.
Accessible prose, yeah.
Right. Hazlitt connected that highbrow analysis with everyday stuff, which made him pivotal in shaping public opinion.
And that connection you mentioned with R.L. Stevenson, that's pretty intriguing, isn't it?
It is. Question 47-48. Stevenson aping Hazlitt.
What do you think Stevenson saw in Hazlitt's writing? What drew him in, and what's that tell us?
Well, that's a great question for you to consider. When one writer emulates another, they're often drawn to specific things, right?
Like the voice or...
Yeah, the voice, sentence structure, maybe just the way they look at the world. Hazlitt's style. It was known for being direct, personal, engaging.
Making complex ideas relatable.
Exactly. And Stevenson, famous for his own clear, captivating prose, he likely saw a model in Hazlitt, a way to connect with readers meaningfully.
So it shows that influence across generations.
Definitely. Highlights how literary influence works, how writers find inspiration, techniques in those who came before.
Okay, now here's where it got really interesting for me. Question 49. Hazlitt preferred Scott over Byron.
Ah, yes. Scott versus Byron, a classic matchup.
Right. And Byron was this huge romantic figure, all passion and drama. Scott, well, more historical narratives, maybe more grounded.
Often, yeah. Different vibes entirely.
So why might Hazlitt lean toward Scott? What's that suggest about the literary taste back then?
It's a nuanced point and something for you to think about. The quiz doesn't give us his full reasoning, obviously.
No, just the preference.
It's just the preference, but we can infer a bit. Hazlitt, despite his own passion, often valued a certain realism, maybe. Perhaps he found Scott's settings, his characters, more substantial, or maybe less. Well, less inclined towards what he might have seen as Byronic self-absorption.
Okay, that makes sense.
It touches on a big literary debate back then, romantic idealism versus a more observational way of storytelling.
Gotcha. Okay, shifting gears a bit. After the Hazlitt focus, the quiz brings in Thomas de Quincey.
Right. Starting around question 58.
And straight in with his most famous work, Confessions of an English Opium Eater.
Quite a title. Still grabs you, doesn't it?
It really does.
Mm.
But the quiz also mentions his essay on knocking at the gate in Macbeth.
Which shows a very different side, more analytical.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And then murder, considered as one of the fine arts. That sounds, well, dark.
It certainly has a macabre ring to it, yeah. But maybe hints at a kind of intellectual curiosity about the darker side of human nature.
The quiz even mentions his mystic vibe.
Which probably comes from his exploration of altered states, that kind of introspective, dreamlike writing style he had.
Plus, he wrote reminiscences of the English lake poets, so he knew Coleridge, Wordsworth, Dorothy Wordsworth.
Absolutely. Puts him right in that circle. So he paints a very different picture for you compared to Hazlitt.
Totally
Jeff.
different feel.
Yeah, De Quincey represents another really compelling part of this literary period for you to explore. The Confessions. That was groundbreaking. So candid about addiction, subjective experience.
Yeah, and the Macbeth essay.
Shows that sharp analytical mind looking at the psychological impact of drama. And his reminiscences are just invaluable firsthand accounts of the big romantic poets. Shows his connection.
Then W.S. Landor pops up. Questions 64 and 65, Imaginary Conversations.
Ah, Landor. Yes. A unique literary form, that.
It sounds it. What exactly were these imaginary conversations? For the listener, what's the idea?
Well, Landor basically created dialogues between historical figures, sometimes fictional ones.
To explore ideas.
Exactly. To explore philosophical, political, literary ideas through how they'd interact. It's a way to show different viewpoints dramatically rather than just laying them out.
Clever. And the quiz mentions his Republican spirit.
Right. That refers to his political stance favoring a republic over monarchy, a pretty significant position back then, with all the political changes happening.
And sticking with ideas, question 66 points out De Quincey was interested in Kant's philosophy.
Yes. That adds another layer to him, doesn't it? For you, that suggests a deeper intellectual framework.
How so?
Well, Kant's ideas about, the limits of understanding, the nature of experience, that likely resonated with De Quincey's own explorations of consciousness, especially given the opium influence.
Right, connecting his writing to philosophy.
Precisely, underpinning the more sensational stuff.
Okay, now, Thomas loved Peacock. He sounds like quite a character.
Oh, Peacock, yes. A master of satire.
Question 67, 68. Nightmare Abbey, Melancourt. They apparently roast Coleridge, Wordsworth, and Southey.
They do indeed. Some serious literary skewering there for you to appreciate.
Wow. The quiz also mentions his dialogue novels.
Which was his signature style, really. Perfect for his sharp observations, his critiques of the intellectual and social trends of the day.
So taking aim at the big names suggests he was maybe reacting against some aspects of Romanticism.
That's a good way to put it, yeah.
Huh.
Perhaps their perceived excesses or, inconsistencies. It's important for you to understand that critical perspective existed too.
And he also retold Robin Hood and Maid Marian.
He did. And The Misfortunes of Elphin, set in Wales, shows a broader interest in, national stories, folklore.
But probably with his own ironic twist.
Oh, almost certainly. Always with that characteristic ironic touch for your consideration.
Then we get William Cobbett, Rural Rides, question 74. Deals with England's agricultural affairs.
Yes, Cobbett. Feels like a bit of a shift, doesn't it?
Yeah, away from the purely literary or philosophical figures we've been discussing for you.
It is, but Cobbett's another crucial voice for you to be aware of. The voice of social and political commentary, but rooted in everyday reality.
Rural Rides was literally him riding around.
Pretty much. First-hand accounts of his travels through the English countryside, documenting how agricultural laborers lived, offering his often quite prickly opinions on social and economic issues.
So his inclusion shows that this kind of writing mattered too.
Absolutely. It highlights the importance of this kind of commentary and, shaping public discussion, raising awareness about ordinary people's lives for you.
We also meet Sydney Smith, co-founder of the Edinburgh Review.
A hugely influential journal, yeah. Question 75.
Wrote against religious intolerance in Peter Plumley's letters.
Significant contributions to social reform there. Question 76.
And believed government should basically just protect people and property. Question 77.
Mm-hmm. Sounds quite pragmatic, doesn't he?
He does. An influential figure for you, clearly, but maybe in a different way.
Definitely. Smith was key in the intellectual and political scene. The Review shaped opinion massively. His writing on tolerance, his view of government, reflects a kind of Whig pragmatism that was very influential then. He's at that intersection of literary skill and active engagement with social issues.
Okay, nearly there. Finally, Lord Macaulay, described as having the ultimate debating style,
Ah, Macaulay. Question 78, yes. Renowned for his eloquence.
and apparently knew Paradise Lost by heart. Question 79.
That's the legend, shows his vast knowledge, his intellectual power, all significant for you to understand his impact.
And he was working on his big, unfinished History of England. Question 80.
Right. His masterpiece, intended as this comprehensive, engaging history, even unfinished, it's a testament to his ambition and scholarship. A formidable intellect for you to appreciate.
So, okay. We've covered Hazlitt, De Quincey, Peacock, Cobbett, Smith, Macaulay. Quite a diverse group pulled from this quiz.
It really is.
Looking at them all together, what are the key takeaways for you? What connections or themes jump out that would be most useful for our listener to grasp?
Well, what's really insightful for you here, I think, is seeing how interconnected this whole scene was, even with all their different interests and styles.
You mean like De Quincey knowing the Lake poets?
Exactly. Or Peacock satirizing them, or Hazlitt offering his critical views on everyone.
Right?
The quiz kind of accidentally reveals this really vibrant intellectual landscape. Writers were engaging with each other's ideas, sometimes agreeing, sometimes, strongly disagreeing.
It wasn't just poetry and novels either.
Not at all. It highlights the wide range of writing that mattered then. Literary criticism, personal essays, political commentary, history. It was a much broader conversation about culture and society.
And the focus on Hazlitt. What does that signify?
Well, the quiz's heavy focus on him. It might reflect a time when his critical voice, his wide-ranging intellect, was seen as particularly central, maybe, a touchstone for understanding that landscape.
But not the only voice.
Oh, definitely not. As we saw with De Quincey, Peacock, and the others, different facets of romantic early Victorian thought were clearly also very prominent.
So this deep dive, it started with just a quiz show transcript, but it's actually given you a surprisingly effective way in, hasn't it?
It really has, a way to encounter these key figures and works.
Like a literary map hidden in the questions, offering you a unique overview.
Precisely. And it just demonstrates for you how even something seemingly light, like entertainment, can offer real insights into the cultural and intellectual priorities of a period.
So, thinking about that range of people and topics we just walked through, what does it suggest to you about the intellectual landscape back then?
It suggests it was incredibly dynamic, full of debate, and covered a huge amount of ground, from deep philosophy to practical politics.
And which of these authors or these topics sparks your own curiosity for maybe exploring further? It makes you wonder who else was part of this scene, what other debates were shaping their world.
That's the perfect question to leave with. Which of these writers might you, the listener, want to deep dive into next?